It's Gilliangladrag. It's Gilliangladrag. It's Gilliangladrag Fluff-a-torium. 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 Show.
Ta-da! Betty is on the chair. She needed quite a lot of coercing, but she's here. In fact, I had to pick her up. There you go. Go on then. Good girl, Booey. Oh, and she was wearing her hand-printed bandana. Actually, I don't need to sit on your blankie. It's hot enough in here as it is, isn't it, Christopher?
Oh, yeah.
It's such a lovely day. Oh, gosh, I nearly pulled my microphone off then. It's such a lovely sunny day. Everyone is happy. Let's dye some yarn. I hope you're all well. Let's dye yarn on this sunny day. Okay, so I have done this tutorial before last year, but we had a few technical hitches, and I think it ended up on YouTube in portrait instead of landscape or something.
Gillian, you seem to have ruffled your microphone a bit.
Oh, have I?
It seems to have now disappeared behind your apron.
I'm gonna be in trouble.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
I'm gonna be in trouble.
Now it's pointing over your shoulder.
Now it's pointing over my shoulder. Okay, I'm gonna be very quiet while I try and fix it. Bear with me a second, everyone. Okay, is that better?
No, you're still pointing over your shoulder.
Oh, you told me it was okay earlier. Oh. Okay, how's that? Is that better?
That will have to do.
That will have to do. Sorry, I hope you can hear me okay. Ooh. Have we got some viewers?
Yeah.
Fabulous, okay. Well, let's get cracking. So I'm going to show you how to dye yarn today. If you've never done it before, you will need some yarn to dye. And you will need some dyes. So we sell a little acid, well, it's called an acid dye intro pack, but let me just quickly state right at the beginning, there's no actual acid in here. Everyone's always like, oh my goodness, is it acid? Or is it gonna dissolve my fingers? It's not acid. All it means is that it needs an acid environment in which to work well, okay? So therefore you need to pre-soak your yarn in some sort of acid environment, okay? I'm feeling it's gonna get very hot in here. Please excuse me if I start sweating, but it's lots of machinery everywhere and it's getting hotter and hotter by the second. Okay, so when you get this pack, it comes with ammonium sulfate, which is a fixative and makes it acidic. Sorry, that's the dog coughing. You can use vinegar. I use citric acid, okay, which I get in a massive thing, which is actually food grade citric acid, because I know you can use it to make all sorts of things, and you can use it to make bath bombs and so on and so forth. So this comes with a fixative that you can also use. It also comes with 4 colours. It comes with cyan, which is sort of blue, okay, and it comes with black, and it comes with magenta, and it comes with lemon. And you can pretty much mix any of those colours together to make most other colours, okay. So here are some skeins that I've dyed previously with this set. As you can see, we've got some yellow, we've got some green. Here's the cyan, and I've mixed it with the green. Here's the pink that I've mixed with the green. Here's some orange and some sprinkles, okay. So I've got some yarn that I've already prepared in a soak, okay. Do you just want to go to the overhead shot for me a second, Chris, please? Okay, so you can see here that I have soaked this yarn. This is just the 20 gram sock yarn that we sell, okay? And you can see here that I've tied it up in a few places, just here, here and here, okay. Just using some old yarn.
Why are you shouting?
Oh, sorry, am I shouting? Sorry about that. I didn't mean to shout, sorry. Just using some old yarn. So any old cheap yarn that you've got, just cut a bit off like that, okay. And then just loosely tie your yarn up in several places. And I just want to show you that I sort of put my finger through there and just tie it loosely, okay, like that. Oh, sorry, that's the dog coughing again. Just so that you've got a bit of space here so that it doesn't so it's not really, really tight around the yarn. And then just snip that off like that, okay. So I would do it probably, I don't know, in about 3 or 4 different places just to keep the yarn together, because if you don't do that, when this has been dyed and is then rinsed, it could all tangle together, and then you're going to end up, oh God, the dog's really coughing, sorry. And then you're going to end up with it all like tangled into a big lump of spaghetti, okay, if you don't do this. So that's the first thing to do. The second thing to do is to always soak it. So here is my soak. It just honestly just looks like nothing because it's just my citric acid soak. The amount of citric acid I use is 5 grams per 100 grams of weight of yarn. That's the recipe I use.
Say that again.
So I use 5 grams of citric acid. I think I use a teaspoonful of citric acid powder granules into water, and I use 5 grams of it, or a teaspoon of it, per 100 grams of yarn. That's my recipe. The pack that we sell, like I said, it doesn't have citric acid in it, it has ammonium sulfate. It's similar, and the quantities that you need to use, dog is still coughing. Do you know what? I don't know what it is that makes her cough after I give her a treat in here. It's very odd. Maybe it's the treats. Salmon with herring. Natural soft bites. I don't know. What was I saying? Stop coughing, Booey. You sound like an old man. Sorry about that. Yeah, anyway, it gives you the amounts that you need in here. How long to soak it for is the next question. I would say at least an hour. So soak your yarn for at least an hour before you want to dye it. To be honest with you, we usually pre-soak it the night before the day we're going to dye it, okay? So that's that with tying it up and with pre-soaking it, all right? And here, as I said before, is some of my pre-soak. So I've pre-soaked it, and then I've just got this here. So this pre-soak is quite, I think it's quite useful because it's already acidic, okay? So if I add my colour into this now and then I dip my skein into it, it's going to hold the colour better because it's already acidic, all right? So before I start doing all of that, let me just talk to you a little bit about safety, which is a bit dull, but I feel quite strongly about it when we do dyeing because these dyes are probably quite toxic. I mean, I think they're manufactured, you know, as best they can, making them non-toxic, but I'm sure you don't want to breathe it in or get it on your skin. It's absolutely fine to dye the yarn with it because it's going to be steamed at a very hot temperature or made very, very hot and then rinsed, okay? But it's important that, look at these, my beautiful rubber gloves.
Hey, we've got a question. We've got a question.
You want to know where I got my rubber gloves? No.
No.
I actually don't remember where I got them, so that's lucky.
And it's a good question.
Yes.
How much water?
Yeah, I tend to just cover the yarn. So I would cover the yarn that you're using, make sure it's completely immersed in water, and add the amount per skein, per weight of yarn.
You put the yarn in first.
I
and then
don't.
cover it with
I
water?
tend to judge how much. So I put the water in my large sort of trug, just off colder, just make it slightly, very, 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 very slightly warm, only just, so it's not freezing cold. Put my citric acid in, or you could use your ammonium sulfate, and then I do swirl it round with a stick to sort of dissolve it all, because it's like granules, so I get it all dissolved. But I judge the water, and I know how much yarn is going to go in.
Is that a special stick?
Yes, it's a stick that doesn't matter. I think it might be the end of a paintbrush, actually, if I'm brutally honest.
It's not a dyeing stick.
No. Does such a thing exist?
Hit me with your dyeing stick.
Hit me with your dyeing stick. So, so the yarn, before I dye it, the yarn goes into that soak. I leave it overnight, okay? But you know, at least an hour. An hour is fine, okay? Especially if you're just trying things out and testing them. But then the point I want to make is don't then throw the soak away, because it's quite useful, okay? So going back to safety, all right. So I recommend a pair of rubber gloves, please. Always wear those when you are dyeing. I hate wearing rubber gloves. I hate wearing gardening gloves as well. I am the sort of person that will always try and get away without wearing a glove if I can. And so therefore I have in the past dyed my fingers. It's not the best idea really, because obviously these things can get absorbed through your skin. So not the best idea. Always try and wear your rubber gloves. I got so hot and sweaty in them the other day, but hey. And then you do really need a pair of goggles. I'm often wearing my glasses, so I wear my glasses, but goggles, or of course now we have those visors that we all wear for COVID or not. They're quite useful if you want to get yourself a visor. That's actually probably more sensible than the goggles. And then you do need a mask. Now really you want one of those that you can get from DIY places that stop dust particles from going up your nose. I won't put it on now, but really you want one that's going to sort of clip over your nose like that, and go around the back, and then like fit quite tightly to your face so that you're not going to breathe in any of the dust particles of the dye. And that really, if I'm honest, only happens when you're doing sprinkles. So when you're getting the dye and you're sprinkling it, and I'll show you how to do that, that is the time when it's most likely to go up your nose. If you're dissolving it into a liquid, obviously it's not flying around in the air, so it's really only when you're likely to breathe it in that you need to be wearing that mask all the time. Okay, so that's that. And then obviously you do need a space to work in that is not near food preparation, okay? So I know a lot of us probably want to do this in the kitchen. That's fine, but I would keep a special tablecloth just for dyeing, maybe a piece of oilcloth or something like that, or something that you put down that just keeps it all contained, okay? If you've got, I don't know, some big trays or something. But more importantly than that, just don't use your utensils or your pans or anything, or dishes for dyeing. Get some cheap separate ones that you keep separately just for dyeing, or get something that doesn't matter that you never use for food, please, because you don't want to mix the two, believe me. And I'm going to talk to you about how sometimes we steam the yarn, okay? And I'm going to talk to you about what you can buy just for £20 to steam your yarn that you just keep separately just for dyeing so that you don't use it for food. Okay, moving swiftly on. I've made notes here so don't forget anything. Right, so that's all that. Okay, acid, don't worry about the acid. That's not in the dyes. It's the environment in which the dyeing takes place. So the acid dyes, suitable for any protein fibres. So ideal for wool, okay, you can also use them for silk, you know, an angora, mohair, anything like that, but it's not for cotton, okay. So it's a protein fibre that's come from an animal. That's the acid dyes, okay. And I've talked to you about tying up the yarn, really, really important. The only one actually that I don't tie up, which doesn't tend to tangle quite so much, is the kid silk mohair. And we sell oh, it's so soft. I love this yarn so much. The kid silk mohair skein tends not to tangle because it's so fluffy. It kind of stays as is when you're dyeing it. So you don't have to worry too much about tying that one up, but certainly sock yarn can be an absolute mare if you don't tie it up. and you'll spend hours just trying to untangle it all. So please, please, please make sure you do that. We do sell lots of undyed yarn skeins, which I shall run you through at the end with the dye set as well, in case you do want to buy those and have a go. All right, so the very first thing I'm going to show you how to do is something that we often do. I've got some of my hand-dyed yarns behind me here, so I'm going to give you some little tips and tricks that I use and what I do when I dye the yarn. And one of the things I often do is I'll add a bit of dye into the pre-soak, and then I'll pop the skein in and let it take on some of that colour. But when I do that, I use very, very small amounts, all right? So I'm going to start off by, let's maybe just go with lemon, okay? I am going to don my gloves, but I'm going to leave for now. I'm going to take my hair bunchy off. We do not need that. I do often tie my hair up, actually, to be honest. You kind of want to get everything out of the way when you're dyeing. You just want to, yeah, just keep it clean and safe and have a clean environment. Whoop. These aren't going to make me hotter at all, are they? Okay, so taking the lemon, I'm going to keep my mask off for the second, but I probably would have it on normally.
Can you move your jug up a bit? And then
I beg your pardon? Oh.
Move your jugs up, love.
Which, what? Up?
Up.
What?
No,
up.
There.
There.
Well, then I can show it on the close.
Ah, perfect. Okay, so my jug. Yeah, sorry, I've covered up my special Instagram sticker, haven't I? All right, so now I'm going to take... Oh, I've lost a spoon. Anyway, well, let's use this one. Okay, so I'm going to take my spoon. Oh no, I'm just going to put the tiniest bit of dye in my spoon, okay? And I'm just going to now pop that into the water. All right, now that wasn't very much at all, but you can see how that's now going quite yellow. I'd really like to find my other spoon that will fit into the pot of dye. Yeah, here we go. Let's use this one. This is quite useful actually. I've got a little set of these measuring spoons. Let's just take a tiny bit more than that. So what am I doing? This is 1/4 teaspoon, and I'm probably doing 1/8. Okay, so let's just pop that in there. And let's give that a little swill around now. Okay, so that's given me a nice yellowy colour. All right, but I just want to show you how very little dye I'm using there. Okay, you really don't need very much at all. Don't tip half the pot in, because it goes an awfully long way, and it's very, very, can you see that's got a lovely sort of yellowy colour, lemon in fact. All right, so now I'm just going to take this first skein and I'm going to totally just immerse that. Do you want to go back to the overhead shot, please? Thank you. I'm just going to totally immerse that in there, and I'm just going to sort of swish it about for a minute and leave it for a second. So this should, in theory, now go a very, very pale lemon colour, as you can see. Okay, so it started off cream, now it's going a little bit lemony. Okay, all right, let's just take that out a second. Now say I wanted to make that a lime green. Okay, let's just get rid of that, some of the excess liquid out of there. Let's now take our cyan dye, okay, and then I'm just going to take a tiny, tiny bit of this. In the real world, I would clean my spoon, but that's a bit awkward right now, so I'm just going to go with it. I'm going to take the tiniest. Can we go back to the overhead to show how much I'm using here? The tiniest. This is my 1/4 teaspoon, so this is probably a 1/16, if that. I'm now going to pop that in the water. Whoa! Whoa! I don't know if you can see that on camera. You want to go back to me, actually, because I think I can hold this up and show it a bit better. It's weird, isn't it? Maybe you can see it better at home, but on my monitor it looks like a sort of nothingy colour. It looks like a pond water colour. Come on, come out. So I just want to show you, some of the dyes are so potently crazy. Just completely get that all mixed in. All right, so now, say I'm pre-soaking. It has gone a lovely yellow, actually. Quite pleased with that. But hey, let's just see what happens now. So now it's going to go like, whoa, a really cool minty green, I'm expecting, because I've got the yellow in there. Not minty, sorry, limey green, because I've got the yellow in there and I've added the cyan. So most colours are mixable with this set, all right? You just need to experiment. And what I recommend doing is getting some old jam jars or some little plastic cups or something and just doing a whole set of different options, and then maybe just getting a little bit of old wool or cutting a skein up or getting some cream wool tops. I often use cream wool tops actually, just pull a tiny bit off and just experiment and keep a little colour chart, testing chart, if you're getting serious about it, if you can be bothered. So this is just me leaving that in there for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Time goes by. And look how that has gone, that fabulous shade of green. Okay, so if you left it in there for longer.
I've really got to say that on my tellies here, it's not showing the same colour. It is really quite a vivid
It's quite
green.
a bright green. Are you not getting that on your, that's what I was wondering. So on my monitor here, actually on my monitor here, it does look quite green.
It looks green, it just in the real world, it looks a lot greener.
Okay, so that's just from me popping that in my pre-soak liquid with very, very, very small amount of dye. Now you might think that's brilliant, I'm done, I love it. But I know that everyone loves sprinkles. I should have dyed this pink actually because I've got a green towel. Oh well, too late. So what I'm going to do now, of course, because it's the most exciting thing, is to show you how to do the sprinkles, all right? So you would get rid of most of the liquid. I've squeezed most of the liquid out of there, okay? And then I'm just going to lay it out, in front of me. Okay. I'm just going to snake it round actually so you can see it a little bit more easily.
Bit higher.
A little bit higher. Sorry, I'm not in the zone today. I haven't got my markers. Sorry. And I'm just going to splay out can you go to the overhead? Perfect. I'm just going to splay out as much of that as I can. All right. And just get as many of the bits of the yarn showing as I can. Okay. So that I get an even sprinklage. Okay. And then just come back to me for a second. I've got the most bizarre pieces of equipment that I use. I'm just going to take this glove off because it's so sweaty. Okay. I use for sprinkling a very, very cheap plastic tea strainer, okay, and even more bizarre, an old plastic toothbrush, okay. Now these things are obviously very, very cheaply bought in the pound shop. I would recommend that you just get yourself some cheap ones that you use just for dyeing, please. Don't borrow anybody's toothbrush. I know that you won't, so I know that's ridiculous. Why am I even saying it? I'm going to just put this mask on just for a minute, okay? Just while I use the sprinkles. Oh, is that the wrong way round? Oh yeah, so it is. You'd have thought I'd have learned by now. Post-COVID. Oh dear. Anyway, I'm just going to put it on just while I do the sprinkling. Can you still hear me?
Yes, don't shout.
Okay then, I won't shout. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a tiny bit of the... Do you want to go to the overhead actually so I can show
will at the right moment,
okay,
yes.
Moment is now. So I'm just going to poke my toothbrush into the cyan sprinkles, all right? And then we go through the tea strainer and just a tiny tap. Now, I don't know, oh yes, you're on the super close up. Can you see how this is? Now you'll see it land and then you'll see it start to develop. Can you see how that's starting to develop? And that will give you the most divine little sprinkles, okay? So let me just do that again. So a tiny, tiny bit on the end of your toothbrush, really not too much, please. And then tiny taps here and there. And that is your sprinkling. You can see I've got far more over in one place than the other. Let me just get a bit more on the old toothbrushy. Let's just do a little bit.
That's all right, Instagram can't see that bit.
Down there. What do you mean? Oh yes, of course, Instagram. Sorry, you're right in the middle, aren't you? So this is how you do the sprinkling. Okay, do you want to come back to me for a sec? I am just going to put the lid on that now. And then I am just going to remove my mask for a second. Oh my goodness, I'm so hot. So that's going to give you your lovely sprinkles. I'm just going to take these off for a minute as well, sorry. Not that I'll ever get them back on again because my hands are so sweaty. And you can literally just leave that as is now and put it to one side. But I'm also going to show you some other tips and tricks. Oh, that's better. Of how I do other things as well. So really think about the colours and how the colours are mixing together here. If you really struggle with that, it's worth getting yourself a colour wheel, or indeed just Googling one and looking on Pinterest or whatever, and looking at the colour wheel and which colours go together and which colours mix with, you know, obviously we all know that if you mix blue and yellow, you're going to get green, but you know, infinite variations thereof, okay? But here we've got, you know, an example of the sprinkles, okay? So they've been sprinkled on, they've been fixed with heat, and I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute once I've shown you all the exciting ways to colour your yarn.
Got a few questions.
Oh yeah, go on then. Fire away with a question, yeah.
Lisa Van Helsing from
Hi,
Facebook
Lisa.
asks, can you get extra individual colour dyes or just the kit?
We only sell the kit. We sell a basic kit, but the colours that come in the kit should allow you to mix infinite variations of all the colours of the rainbow. So you've got the primaries in there, you've got the cyan, the magenta, and the lemon, the yellow, and you've also got black, so you can take that up and down. And I don't know if you, I'll post the picture again on social media afterwards. It's probably on my grid somewhere, when I've run my workshops before and people use just these 4 colours. They all create the most amazing yarns that all look so different, so brightly coloured. And you can see just from the little small collection that I've got here that all sorts are possible, okay? If you really want to get into this in a lot more serious a fashion, you can go off and buy more dyes and other dyes. So this is just the only thing that we sell in this realm, which is a starter set with these colours in it, just to kind of give you a good start. But I can see what I've got in front of me is the most amazing shade of green. I don't know if it's coming over on the camera, and it's got these beautiful blue sprinkles on it. You can really, really do some lovely things just with this set.
Patricia from Facebook is saying, why did you dye it yellow first?
Just to show you that you can. No other reason than that. No other reason than that. So I could have gone straight in for green, but if I'd wanted green, I would have always had to add cyan and lemon together to make green. Okay, so I was just sort of showing you when you could dip it in, make it lemon, then sprinkle it, or you could dip it in another colour as well, and so on. And you can, I could now add a little bit of tiny speck of black to that and take it down to a different sort of like more knocked back green, if you like, more of like a sort of olivey green, okay? And then if you add a bit more yellow to it, you're going to get more limey greens. So it's all about mixing the colours, and that's why I'm suggesting a colour wheel or a colour chart will really help you with that if you want to experiment with lots of different colours. Any more questions?
Yes, I'm sure that, anyway, from the Netherlands,
yes,
Wool van Wit,
yes,
is talking about fixing the colours.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute,
okay,
actually.
All right. Okay.
Is that a question about how to do that?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, I will talk to you about that in a minute. I'm just going to get a cloth actually and put it over these sprinkles so I don't put one lot on another lot. All right. So the next thing I'm going to show you is about how to paint your yarn with colour. All right. So let's just mix. Actually, I do need to keep these on. I don't know why I keep taking them off. It's like autopilot. Blah, get them off me. Okay, let me just put them back on again. I'm just going to make up some slightly stronger dyes, okay, in my little cups here. Again,
it's
I'm
like
using
a science experiment.
I know, I feel.
Where are your goggles?
Yeah, I've got them just here, but there.
There you go.
I don't need to wear them for this
then.
time being. Right, okay, I'm just going to mix up another couple of colours, and I'm going to show you how I paint it on as well sometimes. So there's so many different ways of doing this. Let me just clean my spoon, get all the blue off my spoon. And it's, I mean, normally obviously you'd have the sink and the running water and you'd clear it up that way. All right, let me just pop that out in front of me. All right, so now I'm just going to mix up a tiny bit of magenta. Again, you don't really need very much. I'm using about a 1/16 of a teaspoon, I would say, here. And I'm just going to look at how bright that's gone. Oh, you can't. There we go. Now look at how bright that's gone. Let me see if I can just... It's gone really like the brightest shade of magenta. Does that come across on the camera or not?
Not really.
Okay, come back to me a sec. Let me see if we can do it. Me holding it up. It's in front of my white. There we go, look. It's really quite a bright pink, that. So I'm going to do that colour there. Okay. And then I'm also going to just mix up some more lemon, but slightly more concentrated. Let me put my lid back on. Sorry, I'll go as fast as I can. Quick, tell a joke. Keep them entertained, Christopher. Know any good jokes?
No, but I can ask a question.
Oh, go on then.
How durable is the dye when you would need to wash the final knitwear or crochet work?
Yeah, no, it's fine. What I would say was, obviously, you are going to be... there are going to be limitations as to how you can wash the yarn anyway, whether it's super wash or whether it's hand wash only or wash at 30 degrees. I would always wash it at 30 degrees. I would never wash a hand dyed yarn in hot water.
No?
So I would always...
You're not supposed to do that?
No. So it's fine. It should be fine. Once you've fixed it, it should be fine. Okay.
And if it was a beret, could you
Let's not even go there, because I'm sure half the people watching probably don't know about the fact that you shrank my beret and turned it white.
No. My beret you shrank.
Let's not even start that conversation again. Right, okay. I'm going to take another one of... I'm so cat-handed. I'm desperately trying not to knock anything over here. Right, let's take another one of my pre-soaked mini sock skeins. These are 20-gram skeins that I have pre-tied so they do not get all tangly. Okay, and I'm going to show you now how I sometimes paint the yarn with an actual paintbrush when I'm feeling particularly arty. Okay, so some simple, cheap, inexpensive, boring paintbrushes. I've mixed up slightly more concentrated, some yellow, and I've mixed up slightly more concentrated pink. Let's take it from there to start with. I've got my green over there in the corner as well. Okay, am I in the right place for Instagram here? Do I need to move it up higher?
Higher would be better.
Higher, like that.
Yeah.
Okay,
let's higher if possible.
Okay, let me move my die over there and let me go up here. Better?
There you go.
Okay, let me move the undyed skein out of the way. Right, okay, let's go there. Right, so let me take my paintbrush and start painting so you can see what I mean. Okay, so, oh, look at that. There we go. So this is where you can, so sometimes one of the skeins that we sell called The Hills Are Alive with the Sound of Music, I do actually paint the yarn like a picture before I steam it. So you can get very carried away with all of this. So doing it like this, of course, gives you a lot more control over it. So you can be very specific about where you want the colour. I'm going to show you in a minute as well how to dip dye it. Now, if you're doing this, be aware of the fact that obviously the bits of the yarn underneath might not have quite as much colour on them. I'm hoping this is a lot sort of clearer to see than when we did this last year, and that you can see what I'm doing a lot more easily. All right, so let's just put that to one side for a second, and let's get our magenta pink. Whoa! And let's just splash. Now, see where I go over, it should go more orange. Is this okay for Insta? Can you see what I'm doing on Insta? So if I just cross it over there in the middle, the bits that have got the yellow and the pink on, you're going to get a lovely ombre going from one to the other. And what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to add some more sprinkles to this as well on top. And you can just do like little bits. I can be very sort of, you know, selective about where I add the colour. So This is going to give you more of a kind of space dyed effect, if you like. And then what you can do also is just leave some bits of it white. They don't all need to be dyed a colour. But I think what I'm trying to get across here is how very little dye I'm using. And I think what people often make the mistake of doing when they first do this is that they use too much dye and it all gets very muddy. And I also just want to talk to you about being careful not to make muddy colours. So obviously if you mixed the cyan with some green, say, you are going to get some quite muddy browny colours. And if you use too much of the dye colour all at once, again, it can all go very muddy. Some people like to do this in water, but obviously if there's a lot of water splashing around, the chances are that all your colours are going to muddy together. I know there's some YouTube videos out there showing like almost these, what are they called, like baking trays, almost like tins that people put the yarn in and then they'll sprinkle them with lots of different colours. That's great, just be careful that you don't end up with it all getting muddied together. So now if I wanted to add in some green into the mix.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah,
Patricia,
yeah.
Good question, well put.
Yes.
Did you put the colour into a mixture of water and acid, or was it just water? So
yes, it's my pre-soak. It's my pre-soak.
It's your pre-soak.
All of this water that I've got here is my pre-soak.
Okay.
However, come back to me a sec. You can just use water, okay? I just think that you're going to get better, more vibrant results if you use the pre-soak water. So I never throw it away, and I always use the pre-soak water to mix my colours with. And to add the dye into and to put the skeins into, okay? So you're going to get much better results if you do that, but you can just use water, all right? Okay, go back to the overhead set. I'm just going to show you now, just adding in a little bit of green here and there, maybe just make just some little sort of limey green sections. And remember, this bit is far more dilute, this green that I've got here. Let's just see what happens if I just add a little bit of that in. I'm going to get more sort of ochre sort of colours coming if I go over the pink with it, I think. Like that. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, you can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm now just going to add a few more sprinkles over the top of this, just to give you, you know, even more scope and even more interest. So I'm just going to put my silly mask on again. Sorry. I know it's very boring, but safety in the workplace, health and safety never takes a holiday. Isn't that right, Christopher?
Absolutely.
What am I looking for? The cyan. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to do cyan sprinkles. I know I just did cyan sprinkles, but let's do some more cyan sprinkles. So obviously, if I'm putting these over the pinky colour, when it's dyed, you're going to see purpley colour. And if I'm putting cyan sprinkles over the yellowy bit, it should go green, and so on. So I think the fun thing to do really is to just experiment a little bit. And then, oh, another top tip, come back to me a sec. Another top tip, always write down what you did. I know I'm pointing my finger at you and speaking sternly like a teacher, but I've learnt the hard way, because you'll do something and you'll love it, and then you can't quite remember what you did. And you'll think you'll remember, but you won't. So, because there's so many measurements involved. So if you've used 500 mils of water with 1/8 of a teaspoon of dye, and then you've soaked it for half a minute, and then you've sprinkled it using and then you did this and then you did that, you'll never remember, believe me. So what I do is I always have a piece of paper and a pencil next to me as I experiment, as I do something, and I write down every step. It's about the most sensible thing I ever do, to be honest with you. I'm not that sort of person, but oh, I've got an itchy eye now. But do it, okay? Because then when you have a great result at the end, and you'll know exactly how to repeat it. When your friend says, "Oh, can I have a skein like that?" and you'll be like, "Yeah, okay, no problem." top tip. Okay, so that's another one then. Look at how pretty that is. Can everyone see that? Yeah, oh.
No,
Maybe go to the overhead.
it's a lot easier.
Yeah, so that's so pretty, isn't it? And then the last one that I want to show you is doing some dip dyeing, okay? So for that, let's just add in some more yellow to this, shall we? Or should we try and make it, I might be making a rod for my own back here, but let's try and add a little bit of black and see if we can get like a slightly...
Ooh, dangerous.
I know. You know me, I like to live on the edge. First of all, I'm going to add some more lemon to this. And I'm just going to try and make it a little bit more olivey, limey, that's the word. More like a lime green. That didn't make any difference at all. Let's add a bit more. Okay, I think that will be now. I feel like I could have some better utensils. I feel like my water is also a little bit cold. It could probably mix better if it was slow. Although, to be honest, we don't usually use warm water to mix the colours. Should be fine. There we go. It's all mixed together now. Now I'm going to add a tiny bit of black. I would say, let me take requests, but that's going to stress me out. I don't think I'm going to take requests.
Oh, no, take requests.
Well, you just like a bit of jeopardy. We both love a bit of jeopardy. What is the matter with us? No, because I might not be able to do it, and then that would be unfortunate.
Well, it might not be able to put colours in the jug.
Okay, well, it speaks the highly experienced dyer over there. Right, I'm just going to add a tiny bit of black to this. All right. Oh, yeah, I might have added slightly too much black to that. Okay, but no, this is all in the name of science. Let's just see how that turns out. I think it'll be fine, actually. So let's go for that in one. And then I'm going to do something the opposite end of the spectrum on the other end of the skein. All right, so here's another jug of soak that I've got. And then I'm just going to add, what do we think? I'm going to put magenta and lemon in, so make a sort of orangey colour. Okay, I do feel like a mad scientist. Okay, so let's get a tiny bit of the magenta, because this stuff is so crazy potent. There we go. And then I'm also going to get some of the lemon in here. Oh no, I tell you what, let's put some of the cyan in here and make a purpley colour. And then we can go from olive to like purple. Yeah, like Wimbledon, channeling Wimbledon vibes. I always think of Wimbledon when I think of olive and purple. Let's just start off with not too much, Gillian. I haven't got my normal teaspoons here. I think it's throwing me a little bit. Right, okay, there we go. There's a lovely, Wimbledon purple. Okay. When is Wimbledon? Isn't that soon? Isn't that literally very soon indeed? Maybe?
Is it happening?
He doesn't know.
I don't know.
Oh no, of course, maybe it's not happening. Because you can't have crowds, can you?
Well, they can still play tennis.
Someone's
There's
calling
only
me. He's calling me.
at the most 4 people in a game
That's
of tennis.
true, actually. Maybe they will do it
And they're
then.
socially distanced on the whole.
Okay.
Or in a
Normally
bubble.
I would wash my hands, but I can't. Someone's calling me. My watch is vibrating. All right, so I'm going to take my last skein that I have prepared here, and I'm going to roughly fold it roughly in half, okay? And I'm going to dip that first end into, oh, look at that lovely purple. Oh, look at that. That's actually a really nice purple. I'm not madly into purple, but that is quite a nice one that I've accidentally made there. Okay, and then I'm just going to give that a good old squidgy squidge out. Lovely. Okay.
July,
And of
Wimbledon,
course-
by the way.
Oh,
July.
is it? Oh, is it? And of course, I always remember it being the week that I was revising for my exams when I was younger. So that would have been like, before your GCSEs and everything. So that was around now. That was sort of like late May, early June. Maybe it's changed. All right, so doing the dip dyeing, obviously the dip dyeing, you could obviously do smaller amounts at once. You don't have to do the half of the skein. But if you do half and half skeins, then as you knit or crochet with them, they'll stripe in quite an equal fashion. So this is something else you can experiment with, how your dyed yarn then knits up, and also thinking about how it would knit up, say, for a sleeve or a sock, which is quite a quick repeat, and then how it would knit up for a jumper, which is a much longer repeat, and how the pattern will change. And you'll never fully know, but you might do if you do repeat dyeing and you get, you know, and you've knitted something up, then you'll know. Right, so I'm going to now dip. Oh, I love this. Oh, look, it's not as dark as I thought, actually. I'm going to do this Wimbledon skein. I am just going to slightly overlap them there, which is just going to give me a sort of slightly darker sort of more yellowy, like an aubergine almost, where they've overlapped. You see what I mean about mixing all the colours? I mean, it's so interesting, isn't it? Like you can just quickly. So if you dyed something purple first and then you dipped it in green, would you get a lovely aubergine? Yes, probably. And then you could do like speckles. Oh, look at that. Look at that Wimbledon skein. Okay, right, I just need to try and clean my glove. I'm probably never going to get these gloves on now. They feel like they've stuck to me. Right, let's just squidge this out now. And then, of course, you can paint over bits of this. Let me get this out of the way so I don't spill it everywhere. And then out the way, get out the way, all you possible spillages. Okay, that's much better. I feel much happier now those aren't right in front of me. So yeah, what do we think of that? Shall I lay it down so everyone can see it down on here? I tell you what I'll do. I'm going to get a new dishcloth.
You don't care
I
today,
don't.
do you, eh?
I'm just going to move this one out of the way briefly. And let me just lay down my newly dyed skein. Do you want to go to the overhead now? Hopefully people can see that. Christopher, there we go. All right, so you can see how those two colours have worked out there. Quite nice, quite nice. Okay, back to me. So, how do we fix all of these beauties? Well, there's a number of ways. I am going to try and take these off now. Oh, sweaty palms. Oh.
Question.
Yeah, go on. Okay, before I go on to fixing.
Yeah. Kerry
Yeah.
says, can you dye that part again if you wanted it darker?
Absolutely, yeah. And you know what? Sometimes in the past I've dyed something and I've thought, it's a no from me. Je n'aime pas, no. And I have completely dyed it all over again. But obviously, it goes to that saying, unless you give it to my husband to accidentally bleach it in the washing machine,
and
you
Patricia,
will have to then dye
Patricia
it
says,
darker.
you said it
lighter.
wasn't going to get talked about. Anyway, Patricia asks, is the time of soaking important for the dye? I assume she means. How long you leave it in there?
Well, no, you can see I just left it in there for like 10 seconds and
if
it's
you
taken
left it in there longer, would
it might get
darker?
a bit darker. So sometimes you will do what's called exhaust the dye.
Ooh.
Okay? So when we're dyeing a lot here, we'll have a massive trug of dye that we'll dip multiple skeins into, and that liquid will lose some of its colour because it's being taken up by the yarn, as you'd expect. So in theory, if I kept dipping skeins into it, eventually it would be clear again. And actually that's what you're striving for when you're steaming it or heating it up. You want your liquid at the end to be clear, for all of your dye to have been retained by the yarn. Okay, so the longer you leave the skein in for, in answer to your question, yes, the more dye it will absorb to a certain extent, but it depends how much is in there. So if I'd left that in this jug for even 3 hours, this jug of dye would still look green. It wouldn't absorb all of this into that because that's not enough. If I put another 10 skeins in here, then it might. So my advice to you is just to leave it in for as long as you want to make it the colour you want. So if it looks, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah. If it looks like the colour that you're after, then take it out and move on. I'm looking at them all there. They look like a Fab Lolly colours, and it's making me want a Fab Lolly. So hopefully that answers that. Shall I move on to fixing?
I would.
Yes. So fixing is something that needs to be done using heat. Okay. So you can boil it in a pan of water. Not ideal because all your colours are going to muddy unless you're confident that they're just going to stay where you want them or it's all the same colour. You can also use a microwave. Again, not ideal because you'd have to have a microwave just for dyeing. You don't want to use the one that you use for the family's food, so that's not recommended. So the thing that I recommend the most, and indeed recommend to all my attendees on my courses, and I'm actually going to show you it here. I just need to try and get all the dye out the way so that I don't spill it all over the TV studio, which would be bad because there's a bit of electricity. We don't want that. Just bear with me a second while I slide this into view.
I'm going to ask a question as you do that.
Go on.
Lisa on Facebook says, if you want a really vibrant colour,
Yeah.
do you use more dye
Yeah.
or would you dye in layers?
Either. Just I would experiment with that, Lisa, because it's different every time you do it. So if I put a tiny speck of that magenta in the water, I'm going to get more of a baby pink. I'm going to get a pale pastel pink. And that's how you'd achieve pastels, by using very small amounts of the dye. If you put a lot in, it's going to give you a lot deeper, richer, more intense colour. And so is that what you mean? I think that's probably what you mean. But so if you're going for the pastel pink and you've got a tiny bit in there, leaving it in for longer shouldn't make any difference. But if you had a lot more dye in there, it's going to soak up more of the dye the longer you leave it in there, up to a point.
She's after vibrant, so...
Vibrant, yeah. I would definitely do some experiments. You know, I use these little cups, but just get some little cups, little jam jars, and then fill them up with your pre-soak and put like a 1/16 of a teaspoon, an 1/8, a quarter, and so on, and just experiment and leave them in there for different amounts of time. Write everything down like a mad scientist, and then you'll get to what you're after. Okay, but it is possible to make them really vibrant. But yes, you'll probably need to use more dye. All right, so this is what I often recommend to my course attendees. Okay, this is a simple steamer that you would normally steam your vegetables in, carrots, potatoes, broccoli, or whatever.
Name
normally
some more vegetables, go on.
Sorry?
Name some more vegetables.
They normally come in 3 tiers, okay, but you might be able to buy some different ones. And I think this one came from Robert Dias or Amazon or somewhere like that. And you can literally buy them for £20. They are electric, so you just plug it in, you pour water in the bottom, and you set it going for 30 minutes. It's perfect for this, okay? Especially if you're doing small quantities. You can get a couple, 2 or 3 or 4. Well, if you're doing these tiny ones, you get loads in. But if you're doing proper size skeins, you could get a couple in here. So you could do several at once.
Do the colours not run through?
No, you need to make sure that they're not really, really, really drippy wet. And I would also recommend only steaming like colours together. So we'll do a whole load of the same sort all together. So if you're going to be experimenting with lots of different ones, like this would be fine to put in with those on different layers now. They're not sopping wet, okay? Before I even started dyeing this, I made sure that I'd wrung most of the liquid out of it. But obviously I did just dip that in, but it's still not sopping wet. It'd be absolutely fine. And you just lay it in. But you'll find that the top layer gets slightly less steam than right at the bottom. So you might want to steam whatever you've put at the top again for a little bit longer. But I tend to steam them for between 20 and 30 minutes, depending on the amount that's in there and what I'm doing. Go for 30 minutes if you're unsure. And you should find that at the end of the 30 minutes, that the bulk of the colour has been taken in by the wool and it's exhausted it in inverted commas, and that any water that drips off should be clear. Okay, so what happens at the end of the 30 minutes is it's extremely hot. Be careful. Take the lid off, leave it for a minute, take the layers off, wear some rubber gloves or some oven gloves, take the layers apart, let it cool down, and then take the skeins out, let them cool down. Do not touch them until they're cool. Okay, do not put them near your foodie things though. Put them carefully somewhere. And then you're going to rinse them, all right? So again, wearing your rubber gloves still in case there is still some dye on them. Just rinse them under really, like, not freezing cold, but you want a real just off cold lukewarm water. And that is to prevent any kind of felting. Now, you may be using a superwash yarn, and indeed our new double knit merino superwash roving style undyed yarn, that's superwash. The sock stuff is superwash, and I think you only need to be really careful with the kid silk mohair skeins that we sell that are undyed. Just be careful with those when you're rinsing. You don't want to felt them by rinsing them. If you take it out and it's really, really hot still and you try rinsing it, you could felt it. So you need to let it cool down completely and then only use lukewarm water when you are rinsing, okay? And that way you will prevent it from felting. And as soon as if you're confident that the water's running clear and you've given it a good rinse, what I then do is I then pop them in the washing machine on a spin cycle, okay? Do not wash them in the washing machine, just spin only, don't set it to the wrong thing, and give them a spin, and that gets all the excess water out of them. And then they'll dry really, really quickly, either on a radiator, if you're in the other hemisphere from us. What are we in? The northern hemisphere,
Yes.
the southern. Anyway, if you live in Australia and it's the winter, put them on a radiator. If you're here in the UK and it's a hot, sunny day, put them out in the sun and they'll dry really quickly. And then Bob's your auntie's uncle. They're ready to use. You can wind them into a skein and knit with them and crochet with them and weave with them, or just hang them up and look at them and feel like you've achieved something wonderful. There we go. That's it. That's all there is to it. Going to move this chappy out of the way, back over here. There are various other methods of steam. Oh,
That's
sorry,
right
no,
out the way,
sorry,
that is.
sorry,
Good
no.
work,
Okay, all
good
right,
work.
point made. There are various other methods of setting the dyes and fixing them, but it's all to do with heat. So you could use a stovetop steamer, actually that is how we do our vegetables at home. We've got a saucepan of water and you've got a steamer basket that sits on top, and you can put your yarn in there if you haven't got very much of it. But again, just don't use something you use for food. So it's just, you need to buy an extra set of something in order to fix these dyes, okay?
Wool Van Wit says she's got a thing in the Netherlands called
Yes.
an electric wekpot.
Oh, like an electric cooker thing.
Don't know.
Yeah,
Probably.
maybe. Right, okay. And can you steam in that?
I don't know.
Maybe. So have I covered everything? Sorry, I've got my notes here just to check that I have covered everything.
I don't know.
I think so. Dip dyeing, fixing, rinse. All right, so any other questions then? Any other questions for the hand dye? Let me just talk to you about what we sell, all right, just so you know. So here's our starter pack. Our starter kit pack comes with 3 mini sock skeins. Perfect. So you can try everything out on these 3 little sock skeins, and then you could knit a pair of socks or a hat. Probably enough. They're 20 grams each. So yeah, I'd say that's probably enough for a hat actually. I would. So there's that, and then when you feel horribly confident and going forward, you think, I'm on it. I am on it. This is the one I was just mentioning. This is our new roving style undyed superwash merino. Very nice. Oh, this is just to die for, this one. Sock skein, sock yarn. It's got a silver sparkle in it.
No way.
Can you get that under the close-up camera, Chris? But I don't want to dye it, so I don't want to. Can you see the sparkles or no?
Just about.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, really lovely, very popular. Why wouldn't you have a silver sparkle in your yarn? Just trying to think of a reason.
Does that take the dye?
What, the silver sparkle?
Yeah.
No, it's like
All right.
stellina
Okay,
metal.
I'm just asking.
Crazy. Local. Then we sell the 20 gram mini sock skein separately. If you need more, so you get 3 with the kit, you can buy more. Or we sell it in a 100 gram skein. And then we sell the 20 grams kid silk mohair. I know it's only 20 grams, it goes an awfully long way. Very high meterage on this, it's almost like lace weight. I love this yarn. And it's just so beautiful. Here's my new, this one's called You're the One That I Want. It takes up the dye really beautifully. It's just gorgeous. I think it's gorgeous to knit with. I think it's really nice to knit with in the summer, actually. Make a little lightweight cardigan. There's one on our website, the Gertrude cardigan pattern that I've knitted in kid silk mohair. Very nice. Anyway, so they're the undyed skeins of that. So you can get yourself some together. And this set that I'm holding here, will keep you going for some time. I know the pots look quite small, but actually there's enough in here to do a fair amount of dyeing. As I've just shown you, you don't need very much. And of course, once you've mixed it up, actually, you know, if you're going to do a few 100 grams of sock yarn or something, and you've got your jug full, you've probably got enough mixed up here to do that. I've mixed up way too much just to do this.
Got a question.
Yes, go ahead.
What did I do wrong when colours bleed after steaming?
Well, either you've used too much dye or more dye than was required, actually. It was excess to requirements. So I'm just going to pull my chair in. Or it's not been steamed for long enough. So as long as you're steaming it for about half an hour and it is getting truly, really, really, really hot, then that's fine. Or maybe you just used more dye than was necessary. And actually, sometimes that does happen, especially with sprinkles, because you know you're sprinkling on neat dye powder straight onto your yarn, and actually, you know, that is really, really, really undiluted and really strong. So it's probably excess to requirements. So you might find that even after you've steamed it, you do get a little bit of runaway. Like, I wouldn't expect to get any runaway with that now, because I feel like I've just dipped it in for a few seconds. It's taken up what it needed to get to those colours, and I would expect to now pop that in the steamer and for it to be fixed and run clear. However, maybe with, I just need to try not to get this all over my fingers, and I am. Maybe with this one where I put the sprinkles, I might see a little bit of runoff from the colour of the sprinkles. So don't worry too much about that, especially if you're using sprinkles.
Okay,
I
so
would say,
I've got a question.
Yes.
If you put it in the steamer, does the steamer not shrink the wool?
No.
Because it's getting very hot.
No, and that's how interestingly, how all fibre is dyed. If it's not being agitated, so what's interesting here for you to learn, Chris, especially in terms of felting, it's the agitation of the fibres that really shrinks things. So it's like a combination of things. So when you accidentally shrink your jumper in the washing machine, you've got the soap and the alkalinity, and then you've got that hot water, which is an element, but it's also the friction and the agitation of it going around in the drum, particularly in either a very acid or a very alkaline environment that causes it to shrink and felt.
Okay.
So when you've got it just in the steamer there, you're lacking friction and you're lacking the alkalinity or well, you are acidic, I suppose, but it's really the lack of friction. So that's why you've got to be really careful when you're then rinsing it at the end, because you rinsing it and going like this under the tap, that's what it needs to felt if it's still really hot and if you're rubbing the fibres together.
Okay, I got a question from Ms. Kerry Curtis on YouTube.
Hello, Kerry Curtis on YouTube.
As it's for protein wool,
yes.
Can you dye the dog with it? My dog is going through a punk phase and wants a magenta tail. I would suggest that putting the dog's tail in the steamer might not be the best of ideas.
I would also suggest that the dyes are probably toxic when they're used in their liquid form, and that perhaps that's not the best idea.
Kerry, don't
now,
do
however, you can dye yarn using food colouring. In particular, there's an American brand of, someone will type it into the chat, can't remember the name of it. I want to say Kool-Aid. Is it Kool-Aid? It might be Kool-Aid. And it comes in different brightly coloured colours. Kool-Aid, I don't know what it is. Anyway, you can dye yarn using that. And I know that you can dye yarn using some food dyes. So you could definitely, I think when you watch those programmes on the TV where they groom the dogs and different colours, That's
I
probably
would have
what they're
thought
using. They're
there's a
using
special pet dye.
yeah, there probably is a special pet dye. So no, don't use the acid dyes.
Don't do
No.
that. That's a no.
No,
That's
it's a no.
from this side of the
No,
camera.
I just want to show you actually how different these greens are. I'm just sitting here looking at them, and this one had some of the black in it, and how different that is from this far more sort of vibrant green. There's so many different possibilities with this, and where I dipped one over the other, again, it's really interesting. Like if I dipped the whole thing in, it would go quite a different colour. It's quite interesting. Sorry, I digress. Any more questions?
I think
Oh gosh, we've gone over an hour.
we have.
All right, so next time, in 2 weeks' time, on the 27th of June, I believe it is, I'm going to be showing you how I do the block printing using our new wood blocks from India that we have made. I've just got a selection of them here, but we sell lots of different sets of these. And this week I've been very busy printing our gingham and printing our striped fabric and making lots of napkins and tablecloths. And I'm going to show you how to do this in a couple of weeks' time. So do tune in for that. We're getting a bit low on some of the blocks. If you want to join in, you need to grab yourself a set. And you'll need some paint, which we also sell. It's all under Spin Weave Dye. No, it says Spin Weave Print. It says on our website at the top. You click on that and you go down to woodblock printing, and it's all under there. Or it's also under new at the moment, if you're watching this live and direct. So see you for that in a couple of weeks' time, and enjoy your yarn dyeing, people. Bye for now.
Wave goodbye.
I'm waving goodbye.
It's Gilliangladrag. It's Gilliangladrag.